Big employers explore in-house childcare solutions amid critical shortage. Southwest Victoria employers are looking to solve a severe child care shortage by creating in-house childcare centres. Roster availability and staff retention are being affected by the lack of childcare services in the area, leading to multiple names on childcare centre waitlists and a year-long wait for placement. Southwest Healthcare, which employs over 2,000 people, is investigating various solutions including creating an in-house childcare centre at the Warrnambool Base Hospital or an off-site centre managed by the organisation. Emmanuel College has also considered creating in-house childcare in its strategic plan. A new childcare centre is set to open in Warrnambool in 2024. Varroa mite outbreak reaches grim milestone as eradication fight continues. A year after the detection of the Varroa mite in New South Wales beehives, the battle to eradicate the bee-killing parasite continues. The mite has caused financial losses that run into tens of millions of dollars and poses a serious threat to the beekeeping industry. The number of infested premises in New South Wales stands at 167, and eradication efforts will continue for another 3 years. The full cost of the biosecurity response to the outbreak is unknown, and the impact on the beekeeping industry and fruit and vegetable growers is difficult to determine. The Consultative Committee on Emergency Plants Pests (CCEPP) is close to agreeing on a 3-year response strategy to eradicate the mite in New South Wales by June 2026. Title: Firefighters in Mudgee unable to properly decontaminate due to lack of facilities. Firefighters in the small New South Wales town of Mudgee have been forced to shower outdoors in freezing conditions, which has left them unable to decontaminate from harmful toxins. The Fire Brigade Employees Union said a water leak in Mudgee's Fire and Rescue New South Wales station had resulted in the water having to be turned off 2 months ago. The temporary showers are connected via a garden hose, which has been freezing over in sub-zero conditions, leaving firefighters sometimes unable to properly decontaminate themselves after fire incidents, the union says. The union is calling on the New South Wales government to invest in its emergency services to help rectify these work health and safety issues. Title: Family of child with Dravet syndrome struggles to afford life-saving medication. The Coughlin family, from Mildura in Victoria, is fighting a rare form of epilepsy that causes their 2-year-old daughter, Skylar, to have life-threatening seizures every 2 days. Skylar suffers from Dravet syndrome, which requires drugs that can cost up to $40,000 a year for children, putting it out of reach for many families. One of the most effective medications for the life-limiting syndrome, fenfluramine, costs $110,000 per year for adults and $40,000 a year for children. Urgent funding is needed to make the medication accessible to families like the Coughlins. Title: The PNG Orchids Connection spearheading the Cowboys' NRLW debut. 4 Papua New Guinea (PNG) orchid stars are making history again as they join the Cowboys' first NRLW team in Townsville. S.A. Banu, Sarah Karoy, Shelley Long, and Jessica Reeves, who made their Rugby League World Cup debut together and propelled PNG to its first semi-final, were early signings for the Cowboys. The quartet's World Cup experience and impressive skills at the Queensland Rugby League's Women's Premiership made them ideal recruits for the expanding NRLW. The Cowgirls' head coach, Ben Jeffries, says they bring great talent and diversity that will be crucial to the team. The NRLW kicks off on July 22. Hashtags: Lobsters could provide untapped calcium source for human health needs, say researchers. A new study from Flinders University has discovered a method to extract calcium and proteins from the shells of lobsters, which could be used for everyday products and human consumption. The calcium extracted from the lobster shells is similar to what is found in commercial supplements, and the technology could give a second life to the seafood industry's waste, as well as reducing waste and adding an extra revenue source to processors and restaurants. Clinical trials on the calcium extracted from lobster shells will be conducted in the next stage of research. The Southern Rock lobster industry is worth $250 million to Australia's economy, with concentrated production around the southern waters off South Australia, Victoria, and Tasmania. Renewable energy push creates trade union division. Mining and energy workers plan to split from their current union due to concerns about the push toward renewable energy. The results of a month-long ballot showed 98% of members voted in favor of forming their own union. The Mining and Energy Division's General President, Tony Ma, said union members no longer felt at home within the Construction Forestry Maritime Mining and Energy Union (CFMMEU). Queensland Mining and Energy Union President Steve Smith said the split was due to different paths. The new union would consider its options and lobbying would be more effective as a standalone union. Title: Catastrophic implosion aboard Titanic submersible kills 5. OceanGate Expeditions has confirmed the deaths of its CEO, Stockton Rush, Shahzada Dawood and his son Suleiman, Hamish Harding, and Paul Henry Nargeolet, who were aboard the submersible Titan searching for wreckage from the Titanic. The vessel was found in a remote area of the North Atlantic following its disappearance on 18 June. Rear Admiral John Morga of the U.S. Coast Guard described its state as consistent with a catastrophic implosion. Implosions are fundamentally different from explosions, as they involve the movement of water towards the center of a cylinder, as opposed to away from it. P. Plater sentenced over fatal cyclist crash, but family says we feel pain for her suffering too. A 19-year-old P. Plater, Amelie Sasha Vergé, was sentenced to a 2.5-year community corrections order, with 200 hours of unpaid community work, and had her license cancelled for 18 months from the date of the crash, after pleading guilty to a charge of dangerous driving causing death, following an accident that killed a 75-year-old cyclist, Lindsay Smirk, in Wood End. The judge said the case showed how a brief moment of inattention was capable of catastrophic consequences. Dr. Smirk's family has shown sympathy towards Vergé. They urge people to talk to young drivers to make sure they understand the gravity of driving. Title: Canberra opens a new day program for young people struggling with mental health issues. Young people in Canberra have a new option for mental health treatment with the opening of a day program for those aged 12 to 18. The program, designed with input from young people and their families, offers alternative therapies such as art, cooking, and movement. Josie, a 12-year-old who has struggled with anxiety and depression since the age of 7, was one of the young people involved in the design of the program. Josie spoke at the opening event and shared her hope that the program will be fun and enticing for young people and help improve their overall mental health and well-being. Therapies. Title: Brave hikers conquer cold to witness snowy marvel in southern WA. Hikers in southern Western Australia braved icy temperatures to climb the highest peak of the Stirling Range and witness snowfall. The cold spell is expected to last for several days, with Bluff Knoll summit receiving a dusting of snow overnight. Around a dozen adventurers, coming from as far as Perth, made the climb and experienced a winter wonderland at the 1,099-metre peak. Snow is a rare occurrence in southern WA, and the region only receives a light dusting 1 or 2 times a year. Squally storms with hail and gusty winds are expected in the area. Title: Latest COVID-19 numbers and news across Australian jurisdictions. Here's the latest COVID-19 news and case numbers from each Australian jurisdiction for the past week, as of Friday, June 23, 2023. Each state and territory now reports their COVID-19 statistics weekly, rather than daily, as in the early stages of the pandemic. This week, there were a total of 5,570 new cases in Australia, a decrease from last week's total of 6,906. Victoria recorded the highest number of cases with 3,425, while Queensland's new COVID-19 reporting system is different from the other states and territories. The article also addresses the fall in the number of births recorded by New South Wales public hospitals, with experts cautioning that the available data is incomplete and subject to change. Title: New South Wales Government to re-examine evidence on Cheryl Grimmer's abduction from New South Wales Beach 52 years ago. The New South Wales Department of Communities of Justice has committed to an initial review of the evidence surrounding the missing Wollongong toddler Cheryl Grimmer. The 3-year-old vanished from Fairy Meadow Beach near Wollongong in 1970 with unconfirmed reports she was carried away by a man. The New South Wales government spokesperson says material provided by the Grimmer family is under review. The family has been fighting for justice for over 5 decades. Cheryl's case is one of the oldest unsolved child abduction cases in Australia's history. Why converting not-for-purpose buildings into affordable housing isn't as simple as it sounds. The state government has scrapped plans to convert a former aged care complex into affordable housing in North Queensland, highlighting the challenges of converting not-for-purpose buildings into housing. The Blue Care Palarenda Garden settlement site was deemed unsuitable due to its condition and the level and cost of repair and refurbishment required. While converting existing buildings into social housing has been touted as a solution to the housing crisis, housing policy expert Hal Pawson warns that it's not a silver bullet. Older buildings are often difficult to convert due to rigorous building codes, while commercial properties may be costly to transform. Queensland truck driver to go on trial over multi-vehicle crash at base of Adelaide's freeway. Ross Hicks, a Queensland truck driver who allegedly caused an 8-vehicle crash at the base of the South Eastern Freeway in July 2022, will go on trial in August 2024 after pleading not guilty to several charges. He is accused of hitting 6 cars and a bus that were stationary at the bottom of the freeway, injuring 9 people. Hicks has been charged with 1 count of endangering life, 9 charges of causing harm by dangerous driving, and 1 count of failing to use a low gear. The trial is expected to run for 10 days. Australia's first vanadium flow battery installed in regional SA. South Australia's Mid-North has become the site of Australia's first commercial vanadium flow battery, expected to be operational and exporting power by August. Yadlamalka Energy has completed the Spencer Energy project at Bungamore, where the 2 MW, 8 MWh battery will store around 10 gigawatts of dispatchable solar power each year. The vanadium flow battery has a significant advantage over lithium-ion batteries, with a duration of 4 hours compared to half an hour or 2 for lithium. The battery will reduce peak energy prices and stabilise the grid, with vanadium being ethically sourced and more abundant in Australia than other critical minerals. Biden declines to walk back Xi dictator comment. U.S. President Joe Biden says he does not regret calling Chinese President Xi Jinping a dictator during a California fundraiser earlier this week. Despite Chinese officials making a complaint, Biden maintains that his comments have not complicated U.S.-China relations. Biden expects to meet with Xi in the near future and believes that Secretary of State Antony Blinken's recent trip to China was a success. Biden has previously referred to China as a dictatorship and a place for the autocrat, the dictator. Title: Young Roman's parents warn of MRSA danger after creek swim. In Cloncurry, Queensland, a 12-year-old boy is fighting for his life after contracting a MRSA infection from a small cut on his toe during a swim with friends. Roman Purcell has undergone 6 surgeries over 3 months, and his family now faces another month in hospital and a potential 18 months of recovery. The family urges parents to remain vigilant about cleaning cuts and maintaining hygiene in order to avoid such infections. As Roman's father puts it, something as simple as playing in a creek can have life-altering consequences. Link. Melbourne company fined almost $3 million for industrial chemical fire that spewed out toxic smoke. Bradbury Industrial Services, a Melbourne-based chemical waste recycling company, has been fined $2.98 million over a massive industrial fire in the city's north in April 2019, which took 4 days to put out. The fire engulfed a Campbellfield storage warehouse and sent toxic smoke into the air, resulting in the closure of several nearby schools. Bradbury was charged with dangerous goods, environmental and workplace safety breaches linked to its storage facilities. The company is in the process of being liquidated and has a liquidator balance of just $9,000. Link. Confronting video of police officer punching man involved in car crash prompts investigation. Queensland Police Commissioner Katarina Carroll has referred an incident where an officer was filmed repeatedly punching a man in a car to the Ethical Standards Command. The officer was responding to a multi-vehicle crash in Strathpine, north of Brisbane, when the confrontation happened. The officer had called for backup because the situation was volatile and escalated quickly. The footage captured by bystanders was described as confronting. The service's Ethical Standards Command will investigate the incident. Commissioner Carroll said it was important to review everything available in making that assessment. The motorist remains in the hospital and has not been charged. Indigenous artworks worth thousands of dollars stolen from outside NT Gallery. Police are investigating the theft of 4 valuable Indigenous paintings from the Alpwa Art and Culture Centre in Ali Kurung, Central Australia. The paintings were stolen after being purchased at the gallery, with 2 of them created by artist Maria Dickinson and the other 2 by Warwick Miller and Sonia Murphy. Police are urging anyone with information on the whereabouts of the stolen paintings to come forward. The paintings are likely to be worth thousands of dollars and have significant cultural and historic value. Anyone with information is asked to contact police on 131444 or Crime Stoppers on 1-800-333-000. New leads worthy of further investigation. Vatican says it has new details on missing schoolgirl 40 years on. The Vatican has revealed new leads in the disappearance of Emanuela Orlandi, a Vatican schoolgirl who vanished 40 years ago. Vatican Chief Prosecutor Alessandro Diddi said his team had uncovered certain lines of inquiry worthy of further investigation. The case, which is one of Italy's most enduring mysteries, drew fresh worldwide attention following the release of the Netflix series Vatican Girl. The Vatican had previously closed its investigation after concluding there was insufficient evidence to proceed. Pietro Orlandi, Emanuela's brother, has organized a protest in St. Peter's Square on Sunday, when Pope Francis gives his weekly blessing. PwC scandal fails to boost tax transparency laws amid corporate resistance. Despite the uproar over the PwC tax leaks scandal, multinational corporations have managed to thwart laws that were supposed to increase transparency. On July 1, the Albanese government was set to enforce a new law requiring all companies with global revenues over $1 billion operating in Australia to list their tangible and intangible assets, yet business lobbies have managed to kill off the law. Major corporations like Apple, Microsoft, and Google have convinced governments worldwide that making this information public would be costly, unnecessary, and burdensome. Transparency International argues that this information should be publicized to hold multinationals accountable for their taxes. Title: Son of former Fiji PM accused of domestic violence in Sydney. Ratu Meli Bainimarama, son of former Fiji Prime Minister Frank Bainimarama, is facing 18 charges related to domestic violence allegations. The Sydney court heard that Bainimarama allegedly assaulted and choked a woman on multiple occasions between February and May last year. The charges include common assault, assault causing bodily harm, stalking, distributing intimate images, recording intimate images, and intentionally choking a person without consent. Bainimarama denies all charges. The magistrate is set to hear evidence from the complainant, police, and a flatmate, as well as evidence about material found on Bainimarama's phone. The case continues. Man charged with raping 4 women in Perth in the 1990s after fresh DNA testing revealed. Michael Anthony Woodhall, 51, has been charged with the rape of 4 women in Perth in the 1990s, after fresh DNA testing was undertaken by police. The accused appeared in the Perth Magistrates Court to face 34 charges, including the aggravated sexual penetration without consent of 4 women, dating back to 1995. Recent forensic testing matched fingerprints and DNA located at the scenes of the alleged crimes with Mr. Woodhall. The accused normally resides in Indonesia, where his wife is from, and is originally from Tasmania, so there are concerns he may flee from Perth. Prime Minister commits to holding voice referendum this year, even if success becomes uncertain. The Australian Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, has reaffirmed his commitment to hold a referendum on the Indigenous voice to Parliament in the last quarter of this year, despite opposition leader Peter Dutton's suggestion that it should be abandoned if the vote is predicted to fail. Albanese stated that changing the constitution is challenging, but it was time for the Australian people to have their say. Some polls have suggested that support for the Yes campaign is weakening, but Albanese remains steadfast in his determination to hold the referendum. The Voice would have the power to offer advice to the government, but the final decision-making power would remain with the government. Title: Russia challenges federal government over decision to stop building new embassy. Russia has filed a High Court challenge against the Australian federal government's decision to halt the construction of a new embassy in Canberra, citing a breach of international law and bilateral agreements. The government had rushed through legislation to prevent Russia from building their embassy next to Parliament House, citing concerns of national security and espionage. In defiance of the new law, a Russian diplomat has been squatting on the land in question. This legal challenge could have significant diplomatic implications for both countries, as tensions continue to rise between Russia and Australia. Former police officer avoids jail after death of motorcyclist during pursuit. Former police officer Matthew James Kelly has been sentenced to a 12-month community corrections order over the death of motorcyclist Jack Roberts during a police pursuit in 2020 on the New South Wales Central Coast. Kelly was found guilty of negligent driving occasioning death and will also be disqualified from driving for 12 months. Roberts died after being run over by the police vehicle during the pursuit. In a judge-only trial, it was found that Kelly was driving negligently and that his driving caused the death of Mr. Roberts. Judge Penelope Hock imposed conditions that Kelly must continue psychiatric treatment for pre-existing PTSD and depression. Title: Former South Australian police officer who sexually assaulted 2 women may not be safe in prison, court hears. A lawyer for a former South Australian police officer who was found guilty of sexually assaulting 2 women has told a court that prison would not be a safe place for her client. Martin Duku, who was working his first job based at the Port Augusta police station when he committed the offences, has been diagnosed with alcohol abuse disorder and mental health difficulties. However, the prosecutor argued that 2 of the 3 counts were serious examples of the offending and that imprisonment is the only appropriate penalty for these offences. Duku will be sentenced next week. Title: Russia sanctions 48 Australians for allegedly being part of a Russophobic campaign. The Russian Foreign Ministry has sanctioned 48 Australians, including politicians, journalists, and businessmen, for allegedly participating in a Russophobic campaign by the Collective West. Among those sanctioned were 12 members of South Australia's Australia Day Council. The list of names primarily targets high-ranking executives at Australian military contractors, and the Russian government said the sanctions were in response to the politically motivated sanctions against Russian individuals and legal entities introduced by the Australian government. Notable politicians on the list include Victorian Deputy Premier Jacinta Allen, South Australian Labor MP Dana Wortley, and Liberal Jing Lee. Journalists Luke Slattery and Paul Monk from The Australian were also sanctioned. The Russian Foreign Ministry warned of more potential sanctions.